I had been working at Helix Data Systems for a little over 3 years when the first strange incident happened, though I didn't immediately recognize it as the beginning of something monstrous. The company occupied the top 3 floors of the Edison building, an old 12-story block downtown, known for its flickering hallway lights, constantly humming ventilation system, and elevators that shuddered like something invisible was riding along with you. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I liked the night shift. Fewer people, fewer problems, and no loud meetings where managers pretended to care about team bonding. It was just me, a couple of analysts, the overnight security guard, and the low, steady hum of servers processing data. That's what made what happened with Desk 47 so terrifying. In a place where nothing ever happened, something impossible did. Desk 47 belonged to a coworker named Aaron Booth, a quiet, narrow-faced guy in his early 30s who smelled faintly of peppermint gum and old library books. He never spoke unless spoken to, never laughed, never complained. He was the type of person you barely noticed unless he wasn't there. And one night, he wasn't. I remember arriving at 9:53 p.m., late enough to slip it unnoticed, but early enough to pretend I'd been there. The office floor was almost completely dark except for the soft glow of a few screens left on standby mode. I walked past the rows of cubicles, my footsteps echoing strangely, too loudly like the building was empty, hollow listening. When I passed Desk 47, I saw Aaron's jacket still draped over the back of his chair. His computer monitor was on. His coffee cup was still steaming, as if he had stepped away just seconds before I arrived. But Aaron wasn't there. Probably in the restroom. I muttered, though something in the air made me uneasy. It was cold around his desk, just his desk. The air felt thick and unmoving, like walking into a pocket of refrigerated space. I shook it off and headed to my cubicle, logged in, and started my usual tasks, verifying data logs, responding to flagged anomaly emails, checking server loads. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Aaron didn't return. Around 11:20 p.m., I walked to the break room to get coffee, and while pouring it, I heard footsteps in the hallway behind me. Slow, heavy, unfamiliar. When I turned, no one was there. When I returned to the office, Aaron's screen had changed. He had left a spreadsheet open before he vanished, but now a blank email draft filled the screen, and in the to field was typed my name. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. I stood frozen in front of the monitor, reading the subject line. Don't stay after midnight. My first instinct was that someone was messing with me, but no one else was on the floor except me. The security guard stayed in the lobby. I typed back a question. What is this? Are you here? But before I could finish the sentence, the monitor flickered and went dark. All the monitors in the office flickered. All at once. All 60 of them. A ripple of blackness washed through the room like the computers had blinked. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal. I felt a chill run up my spine, and when I backed away, my elbow hit Aaron's chair. Except, the chair wasn't facing the desk anymore. It was turned slightly toward me. I stared at it. Had been like that. I couldn't remember. I didn't want to remember. I forced myself to sit at my cubicle, telling myself I was overreacting. But the quiet was oppressive, suffocating, like the entire floor was holding its breath. By 12:03 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. The silence felt alive. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the exit. But when I passed S47, I stopped. The computer, now fully powered off moments ago, was suddenly on again, glowing brightly in the darkness. And on the screen was a single line of text typed into a blank notepad window. He's in the ceiling. I froze. I didn't know why, but something made me slowly raise my gaze toward the ceiling tiles above Desk 47. One tile, just one, was slightly out of place, shifted, as if something had pushed it upward from below. I backed away slowly. A soft, dragging noise came from above me. A long, slow scrape across metal. I ran to the elevator, slammed the button, and prayed for the doors to open. They did, after what felt like forever. But just before I stepped inside, I made the mistake of looking back. There was a face staring down through the gap in the ceiling tile. Not a complete face, just the lower half of one. A mouth stretched in a wide, unnatural smile filled with too many teeth. breathless, unmoving, watching me. I stumbled backward into the elevator and hammered the closed door button until the doors finally slid shut. As the elevator descended, I heard the unmistakable sound of a ceiling tile falling far above me. The next day, I reported Aaron missing to HR. They brushed it off, claiming he had requested emergency leave. They even showed me an email sent from Aaron's company account, saying he'd be out for a week. But the email signature was wrong. Aaron never signed his name that way, and the timestamp showed it was sent at 12:07 a.m., the exact minute I'd seen the face. I didn't sleep that night, but I should have known. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I barely ate, barely blinked, my mind racing with the memory of the half-face, teeth stretched impossibly wide, staring down at me from the ceiling. The next evening, I told myself I'd have to go back to the office. Security cameras, the other analysts, the lights, maybe just maybe it had been a hallucination, some trick of exhaustion and stress. But as I walked through the lobby and swiped my access card, I noticed the elevator indicator blinking strangely. Floor 12. Not the 12th floor, but 12 flickered in the elevator panel, even though the highest floor the company occupied was 10. My stomach twisted. The elevator doors slid open. I stepped in. It was empty except for me, but a cold metallic smell filled the small space, sharp and sour. As the doors closed, I saw through the small panel above the controls the reflection of a man sitting on one of the floors. Aaron, or what I thought was Aaron, but his head was tilted impossibly, resting at an unnatural angle, his eyes completely black, as though the darkness had filled them. The doors slid shut. The reflection vanished. I stood frozen, sweat pouring, heart hammering. By the time I reached my floor, the lights flickered violently and then steadied. I told myself again, it's exhaustion. It's stress. Nothing else. When I arrived at desk 47, the chair was turned facing the ceiling again. This time, though the computer monitor was not on, it was displaying an image of the ceiling tile itself. And in the center of the tile, I could make out faint scratches, claw marks, almost as if something had tried to push its way out into the office space. My first thought was fire hazard, maintenance, a prank, but there was no one else in the office. No one could access the floor without a key card. And yet, the sound of dragging came from above, soft, deliberate, impossible. I considered leaving immediately, but a part of me, some morbid curiosity, anchored me there. Then I heard a whisper, not from the hallway, not from the vents, but directly from above. It was Aaron's voice, or what I knew to be his voice, but warped, distorted, cold. You shouldn't be here. He's awake. He's watching. My stomach sank. I couldn't respond. I couldn't move. Then the dragging stopped. Silence. The room was still. But when I finally looked up, the ceiling tile had shifted again, barely perceptible, and a hand emerged. Pale, thin, long fingers like twisted roots. And then the face appeared again, but this time the eyes were not black. They were white, pure, bone white, and it stared straight at me. I screamed. I don't remember running, only reaching the elevator, hitting the buttons frantically, and stumbling as the doors closed. I pressed the lobby button over and over. The elevator descended slowly, each floor crawling beneath me as if I were trapped in molasses. I heard the sound of the ceiling tile dragging again, echoing in my skull, not from the building. Then I saw it, a shadow moving behind the elevator doors, long, stretching downward, reaching toward me. I banged my fists on the metal, screamed for help, and finally, mercifully, the doors opened. The lobby was empty. Security was gone. I ran outside into the cold night, not daring to look back. The following day, HR claimed Aaron's leave had been extended indefinitely, and no one could find him. But my office never felt normal again. Every night, I could hear soft dragging in the ceiling vents, faint whispers calling my name, and sometimes, late in the night, I could see through the office window the faint outline of a man standing silently on my floor, looking back at the city below. He never moved, never blinked, but I could feel him watching me, waiting, patient, biding time until I would return to desk 47. Weeks later, the strangest thing happened. I was reviewing security footage for unrelated work when I noticed something impossible. Aaron, or the thing wearing Aaron's face, was inside the footage even before his employment began. There he was, sitting at desk 47, moving papers, smiling faintly. The timestamps were from months earlier, long before he was hired. I tried to show my supervisor. She laughed nervously, saying, "Maybe it's a glitch. You know, cameras sometimes double record frames." But I knew better. It wasn't a glitch. The reflection, the white eyes, the dragging ceiling tiles, it was real. It was all real. And it wasn't human anymore. I moved to another department. Different floor. Different building. But at night, when the lights are off and the servers hum softly, I still feel it. Aaron, or whatever it has become, is still watching. Waiting for the night when I return to desk 47. And I know that when I do, it won't be just him. Something else will come with him. Something patient. Something ancient. Something that has been waiting in the ceiling tiles long before we ever existed. The weeks following my transfer were agonizing. Every time I walked past an office window after dark, I imagined seeing a shadow lurking at desk 47, though it no longer existed in my new building. I tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but even in the bright light of day, a deep unease had lodged itself in my chest. That uneasy, icy weight made me hyper-aware of every sound. The subtle hum of ventilation, the faint scrape of furniture, the rustle of papers across empty cubicles. I tried telling myself it was normal office sounds, yet there was always something distinctly wrong about them. One night, unable to sleep, I received a call on my personal cell from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was Aaron's, but distorted, warped, almost inhuman. "You can't escape," it whispered. "Desk 47, always desk 47. I dropped the phone, shivering, my hand trembling so violently I could barely lift it to redial. But the line was dead. No missed calls, no number registered, nothing. It was as if the voice had existed only in the shadows of my bedroom, whispering from the very walls. I realized then that the entity had followed me. It had grown stronger, more patient, more cunning. And it had discovered the one place I could never hide, my mind. Days later, my new office began exhibiting strange anomalies. Computers turned on by themselves. Screens flickering with images of ceilings, distorted faces, claw marks. I would glance away, only to find the screens now displaying me. Sometimes asleep at my desk, sometimes hunched over reports, my eyes wide with fear. One evening, as the office emptied, I felt that same chill crawling along my spine, the one I first felt at desk 47. It grew colder and more suffocating with every step I took. Then I heard it, dragging, from above, even though this building had no false ceiling. I froze. The sound was methodical, deliberate, a rhythm, almost like footsteps pacing the air itself. I turned, expecting shadows, but the hallways were empty, and yet I felt eyes on me. The final confrontation happened 2 nights later. I was alone in the office, the hum of computers growing oppressive. I sat at my desk, trying to work, but every document, every email, every report seemed to transform into a warning. Lines of text twisted into threats. "You can't hide. Desk 47 waits. He's patient." I laughed nervously, tried to convince myself it was hallucination, but then the lights went out completely. Total darkness. My only guide was the faint glow from my laptop, which now displayed not spreadsheets, but a live video feed of desk 47 from the other building. I recognized the tile on the ceiling, the chair turned toward the office, and Aaron, or whatever had become of him. He didn't move. He just stared. And then slowly, impossibly, he began to crawl along the ceiling tiles toward the camera. The scraping of claws against the thin metal was deafening in the silence. My heart raced. Sweat poured down my face. The laptop flickered, and suddenly, the feed changed. My own office. My floor. My desk. The image of myself, frozen, watching the empty hallway. And in the background, the faint shape of Aaron emerging from the ceiling, black eyes, teeth white and wide, dragging himself slowly forward. I screamed. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. The chair of my own desk tipped backward, as if pushed by invisible hands. The temperature dropped drastically, freezing the breath in my lungs. A low, guttural whisper filled the room. "You belong back at desk 47. I felt my legs give out. I stumbled backward, trying to escape, but the room seemed to elongate, hallways stretching into darkness. And then I understood, desk 47 wasn't just a desk. It was a threshold, a gateway, a place where something ancient and patient had waited for me all this time. And now it had found me. I grabbed the fire alarm and yanked it, hoping the noise, the lights, anything would stop this nightmare. But the alarm screamed only in my ears. My coworkers never arrived. Security never responded. It was only me and the entity, the scraping, the whispers, the growing pressure of something unseen pressing against my mind, my chest, my soul. And in that moment, I realized something impossible. I had seen desk 47 everywhere I went, on monitors, in reflections, in shadows. The entity had learned how to inhabit not just space, but perception. It could reach me through any observation, any reflection, any glance toward a ceiling or screen. Hours, or maybe minutes, later, I collapsed in the darkness. When I awoke, the office was normal. Lights flickered back on. Computers hummed normally. My phone rang. It was HR, asking why I hadn't responded to emails all night. I forced a smile, pretending exhaustion. But I knew better. Aaron, or whatever had become of him, was not gone. It was waiting, still patient. The scratches on ceilings, the soft dragging, the whispers, they had all followed me. Desk 47 had become part of the building, part of the shadows, part of me. And no matter where I went, no matter how far I ran, I knew I would see that twisted face again. I don't know how long I sat in the office that night, paralyzed, trying to make sense of the impossibility I was trapped in. Every shadow seemed to stretch, breathe, and twist. The whispering voices multiplied, Aaron's distorted timbre echoing, joined by others I could not name. It was a chorus of patience, waiting, something ancient, something that had always existed within the ceiling tiles and shadows of the office. Watching, waiting for the right mind to inhabit. And then it struck me, desk 47 wasn't just a desk, not just a cubicle. It was a locus of obsession, a conduit, a place where the line between this world and something else, something hungry, had been blurred long ago. And now it had latched onto me. I grabbed a chair and hurled it toward the ceiling. The scrape of its legs across the tiles made my blood run cold. Something moved above, faster this time. The dragging sound became a shuddering vibration throughout the entire floor. The lights flickered violently. Then, impossibly, the ceiling tile in the center of the office fell completely away. A blackness poured through the gap. More than shadow, more than absence of light. It was thick, alive, crawling down the walls, reaching for me. I stumbled backward, my breathing shallow, my chest heaving. From the darkness, I heard the same whisper, now louder, almost a roar. "Return, desk 47. It is yours forever." And then I saw him. Aaron. Or not Aaron. The creature wearing his face. It crawled down from the ceiling with a grotesque fluidity, limbs stretching, fingers contorting at impossible angles. Teeth gleamed white in the dim light, black eyes staring directly into my soul. I screamed, stumbling over a desk, knocking over monitors and paperwork. The dragging sound, the whispering, the unnatural movement of the entity, it surrounded me, and the office became a cage. I tried to run for the exit, but the hallways had warped. Desks, chairs, cubicles twisted and stretched, forming corridors that led nowhere. Every doorway led me back to the center of the floor, desk 47. The moment I realized this, my blood ran cold. Desperation took hold. I grabbed my laptop and smashed it across the floor, hoping to sever the connection between reality and this abomination. But as the screen shattered, the entity roared in a sound that was both human and not, and the walls themselves seemed to breathe. The fluorescent lights flickered and died, leaving only the faint glow from outside through the windows. And there it was, Desk 47, glowing softly, a pulsing, almost living object, as though it had drawn all the darkness into itself. Aaron, or whatever had become him, was now fully materialized, crawling slowly on all fours, face twisted, staring at me with those bone-white eyes and impossibly wide grin. In that moment, I understood. I could not escape. I could not fight. Desk 47 had claimed me. Its consciousness was entwined with mine. The entity whispered a final, chilling sentence that echoed in my skull. We have waited. You belong to the desk. Forever. My vision blurred. My knees gave way. I felt a pull like gravity itself was warped, dragging me toward the floor, toward the center, into Desk 47 itself. And as I was consumed, as the shadows filled my vision, I knew that I would never leave. That night, Desk 47 waited, patient as ever, its glow dimming to a faint pulse as though it had simply gone back to sleep content. My office, my building, everything appeared normal the next day. Colleagues noticed nothing. HR never asked why I failed to show up for a week. But I knew. I had become part of Desk 47. My reflection in mirrors now sometimes shows Aaron's teeth and bone-white eyes staring back. And late at night, when the office hums quietly and the fluorescent lights flicker just slightly, I hear dragging. Always dragging. And whispering. Always whispering. Desk 47 is waiting forever. Even now, writing this, I can feel the pull of the desk, the corners of my vision darkening, the familiar chill creeping up my spine. I'm not alone. I never will be. And one day, perhaps soon, someone will sit at Desk 47 and it will call for them as it called for me. And I will be waiting within it, watching, patient, whispering for the next victim.